wasted. Unfortunately, some persons who maybe have the financial capacity very well don't understand the rare opportunity given to them, and they don't take advantage of it. Now, but there's something I want to actually gain from you, because to be honest, I don't think a couple of people really want to go into medicine now. A couple of Gen Zs, persons of your age gap, want to go into either entertainment, pop culture, arts, basically. So why the sciences? What did you see about it that made you want to go into it? And what caught your attention? What's that particular thing that caught your attention?
Well, specifically for me in the medical field, growing up in Nigeria, we don't have a designated cancer center. So I noticed, family members and friends had to travel abroad for cancer-related healthcare. And that kind of sparked an interest in me concerning the disease, because I knew people that had the disease. My grandmother had breast cancer. So it was something that I was surrounded by. So it drove my interest in it. When I went to New York, I started doing research at a cancer center, and I learned about the disease. And then I started shadowing and working in a hospital under a surgical oncologist. So I saw surgeries and cancer, and just all those experiences made me realize that I wanted to be an oncologist, meaning a doctor for cancer. And I also, from the research, because the research I did was more social based, and we realized that Black women are more likely to have cancer, yes, and more likely to die from cancer, even if there's similar numbers between Black women and other races, because of other factors. We do have more genetic predispositions for the disease to become metastatic than others.
Could it be because of where we're based? Is it the region? Could it be the gene? Why?
It's mostly if you live in the United States, there's different socioeconomic reasons. Black people tend to be at the bottom of that
the ladder.
Yeah, so that adds to it. But there's also a genetic component that that's a real mainly in African people of African descent that makes you more prone to it as well.
Wow. You obviously have gotten yourself well versed into this, because I really love the way you're shedding more light into it. But in regards to what you talked about and how you've been able to expose yourself to that particular aspect of your study, do you think there are better things Nigeria can actually do? Because what you rightly said, now I don't think a couple of people are quite aware. It's just recently that people are getting to know what the intentionally about themselves, about their physique. That is women, Black women here. And for them, it's all about having to hustle to make money and not necessarily look after themselves. So what exactly do you think we can do better in this part of the world to ensure that sensitization is out there as heavily as possible, just like you want to know that you have to eat?
So concerning breast cancer, for example, I think going for regular screenings or learning how to do your own checkups is very helpful. The issue is that, in Nigeria, we don't have enough cancer diagnostic tools. So I think we should prioritize. I don't know particularly how the government would allow that to work, but we should prioritize getting those healthcare facilities within our own country. So people that don't have the means to travel abroad for treatment can do it within Nigeria, because right now it's very it's underfunded. There's not enough facilities, and that's something that I want to do in the future too.
Do you think it being expensive is also one reason why they really literally don't try to bother having to go to any of those possibly private centers?
Yeah, I do think it's the price of bringing a cancer center to Nigeria is there, but I know the surgical oncologist that I was shadowing wanted to bring the first one to Nigeria, and there was some issues with the government.
Constraints.
Yeah, so he had to put it in Ghana instead.
Right.
So
wow.
Yeah, I do think the government is kind of
they really need to become flexible. Also, they don't discourage persons. So that means we actually have a lot of potential or interested individuals who intend to set up their centers here. But as usual, it's the whole bureaucracy. I think it's a whole bureaucratic processing thing that must have discouraged him, and he went somewhere else. And I think that's basically what you're trying to say. The government needs to work on its bureaucracy and whatever stringent policies it has in ground, so that it can literally let those people come on board. Another thing, while you were studying, what are the other things you noticed about your age group, or other people who are into the cause that you're studying? What did you notice, and why did you distinguish yourself?
Particularly, one thing I noticed I had a roommate, and she had ADHD.
Wow.
So yeah, and I think it's very common in the United States, and I think it's also an issue here in Nigeria as well. But because of the stigmatization about it, people don't really like to talk about it. And I've dealt with children that had ADHD, and I think I just wanted to use this platform actually to spread awareness on it, because they're often labeled as lazy or irresponsible, and physical discipline is usually what is used to correct these symptoms, and it doesn't really work long term. So as particularly with my roommate that had it, she had to cut ties with her family because it got very bad.
Serious?
Yeah, because her ADHD is very high on the spectrum. Like, she would start something and then she would forget. She was also very hyperactive as well. So, there's a lot of causes for ADHD. There's genetic factors. There's also women who drink when they're pregnant, because it's a neurological disorder. It's not something that you just wake up on one day and decide that I don't want to concentrate, or you're just lazy.
In basic terms, what's the ADHD?
Oh, ADHD, it stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and it's a neurological disorder.
Wow.
Yes.
Attention deficit what?
Hyperactivity.
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So a lot of people who do not literally concentrate, possibly in school, they could have such symptoms, and they do not know.
Yeah, they do not know, and they go about their life with low self-esteem, thinking that there's something
Wrong with them.
And people tell them there's something wrong with them because of our culture in Africa, that you have to beat the irresponsibility out of them. And for some of them, it's really not because of they're irresponsible or because they have like low work ethic. It's really just because of their brain pathways are different from the neurotypical person. Yeah.
So, and this is something from birth. So it's not the child's fault or the person's fault. It's something that, just happened that is beyond their control.
Yeah.
So how do you think we should create awareness in this?
Yeah, I think we should maybe, like, right now, going on platforms and talking about it, and encouraging school professionals to kind of, if you see a student that, because we've all worked with children and we know like that one child that's just very different from the rest of them, that really doesn't pay attention and that's just really doing bad in classes, maybe you should tell the parents, instead of like trying to force discipline on them for them to focus, tell the parents and say maybe you should seek professional help. I see like the ways that they could, manage these symptoms, maybe by splitting tasks into smaller tasks, or being with them, or rewarding them towards behaviors that you want to see, things like that.
Let's give this whole thing a typical example, and because what you're talking about is realistic. All right, it's very realistic. It's just like, for example, I don't like math. I don't like physics. I don't like chemistry, because all those things involves calculation, right? So it's natural for me to stay away from anything that has to do with those things. And no matter how you try to explain it to me, I may understand because you're there, but after 5 minutes or so, I may forget. Now, at the time, it will just be, oh, she doesn't have any interest or talent or gift in that regard, so let's direct her towards something else. And obviously, a couple of children are going through that at this time. What about for children who have to go through core subjects? There are core subjects that you cannot do without, especially if you need to go to either a secondary school or university. You need to write entrance exams.
Yeah.
Now, you are in school. They have this extra lessons that they take care of students for, whether public school and private school. But possibly because the majority of the class, the students or the pupils are doing so well in that subject. Maybe very few or possibly one or two people are not really doing so well. They think it's because that child has an affinity to always easily get distracted or play. Could it be that child actually has it and the school doesn't even know? It
could be that they actually have it. Also, there's some subjects, I feel like, to a degree, there's some things that we just don't have interest in. For me, I like the sciences. English or literature is not my...
But it doesn't mean that if you get into it, you wouldn't do well in it.
Yeah, I would probably try my best. But there's some people that it's very hard for them. Like, you see a child and he's just sitting, or she is just sitting down, and they just keep moving. You tell that you can put their face on the book and they just start wandering off. They zone out. It's like stuff like that. And usually the first thing, especially with our culture, is to beat them into concentrating. And sometimes, it can work, and then sometimes it does not work, and it just makes them grow up with this low self-esteem. And just,
could it be related to dyslexia?
Yeah, dyslexia is something different. It's more with like reading.
Okay.
So it does. Oh, dyslexia has to do with the brain also, but it's people with ADHD do tend to have dyslexia actually.
Wow.
So, but it's very different things also.
Wow, you really read into this. Like, I really enjoy the way you're elaborating and giving more insights into what you're talking about. But what would you advise parents to do there? Because there is this whole, I pay school fees, I have sent you to school, and you're going there, you're not concentrating in school. They tell the teachers to use whatever mechanism they can use to ensure that whatever they're teaching the child, is comprehended by that child. So how do you advise such parents to do something about beyond scolding or flogging them, or speaking ill words against them? How do you let them know that this could be something they need to look into medically?
Yeah, so a thing about ADHD is that the symptoms can be managed and also improved.
Okay.
So if they know that their child has ADHD, maybe by taking them to a professional, professionals give laid out plans on how to manage this child with ADHD and to show them that they're different. So if they could just follow and take the patients out of their, busy schedules to make them follow that plan that they have for them, I think the symptoms could improve. And it's better to treat it at childhood and manage the symptoms at childhood, because if not, it can make bad habits to quickly corrected at adulthood. Yeah.
Wow, this is so interesting. I do know that a couple of families are going through this, but they have not had the avenue to actually express themselves about it. I wish you were going to stay longer so we could have actually taken phone calls. Let's hear of persons who are going through this kind of scenario, whose kids are having these issues, especially those that are not staying with their parents, like their immediate parents, like the mom or the dad. They're possibly staying with their guardian or distant relative. And because they're not staying with their family, so those ones don't even know that this is a problem. They may just think that that child or that pupil is just, I don't want to use a derogatory word, not knowing that this is a condition that they need to look into further. Ekene Wobiko, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, I want to say something, that you are exceptional in this generation. It's an exceptional rarity to be in the field that you're in, to actually put yourself out there, to focus on something this intricate. It's a very few people who would want to go into this and possibly have the tendency to serve. You've seen a vacuum and you've decided that you're going to fill it. It's very rare. And I do hope that you go the long haul and you make us proud.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. And if you've been listening to us, this is City Trends. I had Ekene Omubiko right here in the studio. Like I told you earlier, she's a very unique individual. Very few individuals, young ladies, young men, have such opportunities whereby they properly utilize it and they make it valid within their communities, whereby their parents can be extremely proud of them. I'm sure your dad was so happy, so proud of you, because yes. I can imagine how excited he was when he heard you talk, when he heard